Okay, thank you, Drew. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'd like to welcome everybody here. I had planned on quite a few interactive things where I was going to have you raise your hand if you knew something or wave your arms if for something else. And since I can only see stills, that's going to be very difficult for me to do. It's also going to be extremely difficult for me to talk and tell you everything I want to tell you in 1 hour's time. It would normally take me about 6 hours to do what I need, what I really feel like you should know. I was hoping to find out how many of you are presidents. I was hoping to find out how many of you had been through Rotary Leadership Institute. I was hoping to find out how many of you had actually been in one of my classes. Those of you who have been in my class have already probably turned your microphone, your speakers down, so you don't have to hear me yelling and screaming, which I do a lot of in the class. I want to talk about when I start an RLI class. One of the things I do is I like to ask everybody in the room the question, and I always ask the same question if I can, and it is, why is your Rotary Club better than my Rotary Club? And the reason I like that question is because it kind of catches people off guard a little bit, and they turn out to be a lot more honest and straightforward about the things they like. Some of the answers that I typically get are, when I say, why is your club better than mine? Some of the answers are, we have fun. At this point, I was going to have everyone raise their hand whose club is fun and exciting and enjoyable. And of course, I can't do that. So I don't know how to tell. I'm just going to assume that every one of you raised your hand because your club is a lot of fun. The next answer I usually get is that we serve our community. And as you'll hear from this, the things that they say that are making them happy with their club and making them excited about their club are these things. One of them, the big one, we serve our community. Again, I was going to have you raise your hands or wave your hands or something if you serve your community. And of course, we all do in some manner, some better than others. I've had the answer, we meet in a bar. Hopefully that's not the case for everybody, but if that's part of your club and that makes your club interesting and exciting and desirable to the community, then so be it. One of the answers that I really, really love, and this one is that you all should take note of, is that every member of our club is engaged on some level. Now think about that. Every member of their club is engaged. I would love to be able to see how many hands go up when I say how many of your clubs have total engagement, by everybody. That would be wonderful. One of the answers that is very, very good is we're well organized. Well organized. Now that could be something on many levels, many levels. Every once in a while I'll get the answer, my club's better than your club because we sing. Usually the next person answers, my club's better than yours because we don't sing. So depending on what your club does and that's just one of the things. But the genesis of that response, the genesis of that question is to think about those things that you can do, every one of you can do, to make your club better. And I always love to say it this way: put more Rotary in your Rotary Club. I don't know how many of you have seen the video that Michelangelo Caruso does. He does a short video called "The 13 Ways to Kill Your Club." I'm going to kind of paraphrase his 13 ways before I get into my again, plagiarized 7 ways to save it, the Bill of Fire. All right, his 13 ways to kill the club. Number 1 is neglect food. Food. RLI has I can't think of the word, a PowerPoint on how to motivate Rotarians. In that PowerPoint on motivating Rotarians, every other slide is feed them. Now, this goes for the club meeting, this goes for fundraisers, this goes for community service, it goes for even the social activities. How important that is. It's amazingly important. One of the biggest reasons that we find for changes of venue in Rotary clubs is because the members of the club were unhappy with the food and wanted to change to a better thing. So keep that in mind. That's something that's very important. One way to kill your club, according to Michelangelo, is to ignore the business people in your town. Ignore the leaders that are already there. you should always be trying to reach out and and get in touch with them. Uh, One of the huge things that can kill a club, and I'm a huge proponent of this, is right here, the Rotary pin. I know of a club where the current or the incoming president is heavily involved in several civic organizations, heavily involved with the Chamber of Commerce, heavily involved with the city commissioners, and is on YouTube and social media on several levels, in the newspapers, on television, all the time, not wearing a Rotary pin. So needless to say, I have fussed at him for doing so, and I would love to see his name up here because I'd like him to be hearing that I'm calling him out for it. But there's no reason not to sell Rotary. Rotary is a fabulous product. It's what we are, who we are, what we have to offer. And there's no other place on earth that they can get it. Rotary is our product. We need to sell our product more so now than ever, especially due. Value engineering. If any of you are in the construction industry, you know what value engineering is. Giving people the opportunity to say, I like your product, but if we did this to it, if we added extra bedrooms, or if we added a stairway, or we did those sorts of things, it would improve your product. Listen, always listen to people and let them tell you what they can do to help value your product. One of the things from Michelangelo Caruso's video is the first impression. If I came to visit your club and I walked in there as a visitor for the very first time, would I be impressed? Would I feel welcome? And I do visit a lot of clubs, and when I walk in there, I'm expecting to be recognized, not necessarily for who I am, but the fact that I'm a visiting Rotarian and welcomed into the club. I want to see a professional looking organization. The successful Rotary clubs are made up of professional people that are in the community leaders, business leaders, and it should look like that. And the meeting should be conducted like that. No question about it. You don't want to ever ignore other organizations, the Chamber of Commerce, anything else, any other organizations.
No parent involvement at home.
What's that? I heard somebody. Oh, and I'd love comments, but I see that most of you are muted, so you're not going to be able to. One of the things on his video is don't live in the past. How many times have you heard Rotarian says we do it because that's the way we always did it? That's not necessarily a good way to be, unless those things were successful. But even those things that you always did and were always successful can yet generally be improved on. So you want to look at that. You don't want to just sit back and say, well, we don't have to do anything out of the ordinary. We've got a reputation, but don't do that. Don't live in the past. Don't ignore youth. Don't ignore young people. Bring them in, get them involved, get them engaged. Let me tell you something. I know something about engagement. I've been married 3 times. You don't do that without being engaged. But I'm heavily engaged in Rotary, and I was from the day I walked in. The president of the club that I joined came up to me my second meeting as a member of the club, and said, Bob, we're putting you in charge of coming up with a new fundraiser for next year. And at this time, you're going to have to find out, you're going to have to get people to volunteer to be on your committee, and you're going to come up with a brand new fundraiser, and we want to report in 2 weeks. Well, it didn't take me long to find out who in my club was willing to be involved, was willing to be engaged, could help me do that. And ever since that moment, ever since that day when I came back in and enjoyed working with that group of people, I've been heavily involved. When I first started out with Rotary Leadership Institute, I took the first course, drank the whole pitcher of Rotary Kool-Aid and loved every second of it. Went the next 3 weeks in a row, taking the other 3 courses and the discussion leader course. And the following week, I led my first session. And since then, I have gone to everyone I can possibly get them to bring me to, and I've enjoyed it. I have learned so much about what it means to be a Rotarian, about what it means to be able to give back to the community. I'm not a wealthy person, but I do have time and I do have some talents and I have a very loud voice and I love Rotary. So what I do is, some people call me a cheerleader. I can't do online. Well, one of the things I'm famous for, it's called a Rotary Roar, where I try to get everybody in the room to follow me in a sort of a cheer for Rotary. Excuse me. But apparently it won't work on here, so I'm not going to try to do it. And again, youth, young people. We also don't want to ignore the elderly. We don't want to ignore seniors. A lot of seniors have time. A lot of seniors have money. A lot of seniors have experience. A lot of Rotary. When I joined the Rotary in '88, there were 75 members of the club that were older than 65 at that point at my club. Well, of course, we know what happens when you get much older than that. So a lot of them are gone. And matter of fact, I'm replacing some of them myself. We have a table called the curmudgeon table where most of the older guys sit. You even have to be invited to sit at the curmudgeon table. I'm happy to announce that I have recently been invited to sit at that table, and I see it as an honor. One of the things that the curmudgeon table does that I think is really interesting is they've been tasked with having the new membership. Any new member that comes in has to sit for 2 or 3 weeks at the curmudgeon table, and we are tasked with teaching that new member the history of the club. Now, what does that do? It involves the older people in the club. A lot of them have been presidents. A lot of them have been heavily involved, and sometimes they feel like they've paid their dues. They've done their time. Let somebody else do it. But this re-engages those people. And it also teaches the new members a lot about the history of the club. And who knows it better? Absolutely, who knows it better? Okay, apathy. A killer, apathy. How many members of the club, just kind of show up on the meeting day, but don't think about Rotary the rest of the time when they leave the door? I think it's always a good idea, if you can, to give them, I don't want to say homework, but give them some reason for thinking about Rotary between the time that they meet today and the time they meet next week, or with the new programs, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks before they meet again. But give them something. There's an awful lot to be proud of about Rotary. There's an awful lot of things that you can say. It's like when I was saying selling Rotary. We have so many concepts and parts of Rotary that the average person on the street doesn't know about. Now, everyone in my circle, my social circle, my business circle, my church circle, knows Rotary, and a lot of them are tired of hearing me talk about it, but I do it a lot. But I've noticed that if I step outside of my circle of influence, I run into people all the time, and I am flabbergasted that they don't know about Rotary, that they don't know what Rotary does. In the RLI class, I talk about the elevator speech, where if you've only got a few minutes to talk to somebody, like an elevator ride, what do you tell them about Rotary? And we get a big laugh out of it. I say, well, my elevator speech begins with, let's take the stairs. The reason for that is I can't tell you in 1 or 2 or 3 minutes what excites me, what makes me love Rotary, what makes me want to be a missionary for Rotary where I can, and get out there and tell the word takes longer than that. And it's all because of the things that each and every one of us do. All right, well, I'm gonna go past Michelangelo's video, and I want to talk now about a 7 steps to a sexy Rotary Club. This is not an original idea of mine. It originally belonged to PDG Pamela Atkins from District 7980, and I'm going to use her 7 steps as the outline for the rest of what I'm going to talk about. But first, I want to tell you what my Rotary moment. And again, I was going to have you raise your hand and tell me you know what your Rotary moment is. I can't do that, so I'm going to assume you all have one. My Rotary moment actually occurred before I was even a Rotarian. I was the treasurer and a board member of the National Spina Bifida Association in Washington, D.C. I have a daughter with spina bifida. We went to a conference. We took kids from our local club to the conference. And one of the kids we took, my daughter was, I think, 17, and we had an 18-year-old girl that went with us. Well, a local Rotary Club came and donated brand new wheelchairs to every child in the room that had spina bifida. Unbelievable, and this was a project of that Rotary Club. In that display, they had a wheelchair that was specially made that they were showing off, and it had little hand grips on it. And you put a child in the chair, you strap their legs in, and they had these little pumps, and if they pumped them up, the chair would stand them up. We had a girl, the 18-year-old girl that we took with us. We put her in the chair, we strapped her in, got her all nice and comfortable, told her what to do, and she pumped it up. As she was standing there, tears started running down her cheeks. And of course, we first thought, well, we're hurting her. We must be hurting her. Does it hurt? And she said, no, it doesn't hurt. I am 18 years old, and this is the very first time in my life I ever stood up. Whoa. That's not what got me. What got me was why she wanted to stand up at 18 years old. You'd never guess. She wanted to stand up because she wanted to help her mother do dishes for the first time in her life. I went straight home and beat my kids because they would never do that. So, and hopefully I would be hearing you laugh now because I really didn't go home and beat my kids. But anyway, that was my Rotary moment. Okay, now let's go to the 7 steps to having a sexy Rotary Club. Understand. Number 1, understand. Understand what motivates people to join Rotary. Take a second and think in your own mind why you joined Rotary. I have kind of an oddball thing that made me the very first even concept, long before even I had the thing with the wheelchairs, were the local obituaries in my little newspaper in my town. And I noticed that every time the person whose obituary had been a Rotarian, their obituary was a half a page long with all of the things that they should be remembered for, that they had done for the community. A lot of them were mayors and board members and business owners and people, but they were special to the community. They were well known, they were respected. So I always had that in the back of my mind. And then when I found out about the group and what they did, I joined, as quickly as I could. There is prestige in being a Rotarian. Some parts of the world, it is a lot more prestigious than even in the United States. Some areas, there's a waiting list. Some areas are very difficult to get in, and that's the way I'd like it to be here. I'd like it to be such a wonderful thing that we did such a good job of selling that people just were clamoring to get in, the right people. Fellowship. Excuse me. I'm getting over a cold. This was not a good time the past 2 or 3 weeks to have any kind of congestion, let me tell you. All right. Fellowship. We have people that have been in our Rotary Club 50 years and can't stand to miss a meeting. And it's because this is the only time they get to see some friends of theirs over like the last 50 years. Other people join for opportunities for service. Okay? I wanted to give back something. I've had a good life. I've made a good living. Haven't had to work too hard my whole life. I've had time. I've had some money, and I wanted to do some things to give back to the community. But what could I do? Me as an individual. Could I build a bridge somewhere that helped a community get to the market that I would never cross? Could I put in a well somewhere for a community, for a little village for potable water, so so that could have help? Could I build restrooms? Could all the things that we do? Could I build schools? Could I build hospitals? Could I do any of those things by myself? No. Maybe one or two at some point over time. But as Rotarians, we get to do it every day, every single day. Children are alive today that would not be alive today except for us. You and I, we did that. The Rotarians that came before us and the Rotarians that are coming after us are all a part of that. Uh, opportunities for service are unbelievable. Don't focus on just one aspect of Rotary when you're trying to sell it. There are too many. There's so many, so many. Look at what they're doing now, right now. Clubs all over the United States, clubs all over the world that are doing to help combat the impact of the virus. Rotary clubs everywhere are doing it. Okay. All right. Let's talk about number 2 on the list of seven ways. Listen to what your current members want for the club. Now, I know again, I wanted to see how many were club presidents, because the question goes basically to you. You all know that if you want to get a volunteer to do something, you don't just stand up in front of the class and say, or in front of the membership and say, all right, I need a volunteer to do so-and-so, because you rarely get people to do it. At the same time, if you really want to know what each of them want, don't do it in front of the club and all together. Take each individual member, sit down with them, and have a nice long discussion about what it is they want. What can you do for the club? What can the club do for you? It's very common when you bring in a new member to have them give them a list of those things that are their talents and what they think they would like to be involved in. But at that time, in a lot of cases, they don't know what the club is involved in, so they don't know how many of those things that they could do and that they could be a part of. So sit down with them one-on-one, find out exactly what they do, survey the members to find out what they all want. But even to know if in your individual discussions, if you find someone that let's say 3 or 4 that have similar interests, bring them into a group, have a small group discussion. And then once you've done that, engage the whole club in an exchange of ideas and so forth on each of those subjects. Excuse me. What you may find out is that you need to create a new committee, and that's where we're going next with this. Is we're going to talk about committee structures, and go back and revisit it again. We had a similar thing come up in the group where one person was a carpenter, and he said what he really liked doing was building handicap ramps for people that needed them, but he had trouble funding it and so forth. And we had 2 or 3 contractors in the club. So what we did is we started a committee. We got together. We found money. We found supplies donated. We found engineering. We found permitting help. And we ended up building over 100 handicap ramps at no cost to the people that needed them. What a wonderful thing to sell. That's part of Rotary. Those people turned around and told about who did it, that it was the Rotary Club that did it. And I know a lot of you have very similar, stories about some of the things you do. But that brought the whole group together. Plus, it was a hands-on, not just writing a check for it. Okay. Now, what I said a second ago about having them become a committee. Number 3 is organized. Committee structure is very important. You have those of you who are presidents and going through pets. You had some things about the committees. There's all sorts of things about. There's lists available on which committees you should have. Some things that you need to make sure they do. Those committees need to meet regularly, not just on occasion. They need to be active. One of the things that I would like to suggest is that as many board members as you can, have them be chairman of the committee. Also would like to suggest you have co-chairs so that when one person moves on, you can go on, continue to go on. Okay. Every member of the club should belong to a committee. Some maybe more than others, so you can be in more than one committee. One of the things that I like to propose that we learned about in an RLI session was that there's a committee that's not listed anywhere, but really does a lot to help. And it was an organization that they called the Fund Committee. And one member of every committee, whether it was fundraising or membership or foundation or what, one member of each committee belonged to a separate committee called the Fund Committee, whose job it was to look at the structure of the committee and what they did and how they did it, how their meetings ran and all that, and put fun in it. Now, why would you want to do that? It's a lot easier to get people to work and work harder if they're having fun while they do it. And that's worked out very, very well. Good idea. You should at least think about it as much as you can. Committees need to report on a regular basis to the board. Hope not necessarily every board meeting, but at least often. And again, depending on what it is they do. If it's a fundraiser committee and the date of the fundraising is coming up, they probably need to meet more often. But the board needs to be aware of everything that's going on. And then immediately after that, the entire club needs to know what's going on. We have a nice fundraiser in my club that happens every year. And I have people call me and say, "Hey, Bob, when is that Rotary Bowl coming up?" And I go, "Well, Tom, it was last Saturday, or it was last Tuesday, actually." Oh, no. Now, how did that Rotarian not know that we were having our annual fundraiser that every member of our club, usually, it gets involved in and participates in and becomes a part of, didn't even know about it? It was our responsibility to make sure that everybody knew about it. We didn't. That's a shame. All right. That's the last of organized. Communication. Number 4, communicate. Members need to be aware of club activities. Now, the fundraiser, that was only a one-time, that was just one person. But it's amazing how many regular club members who are there every week do not know what's going on in the club, do not know about the activities. They don't know about the scholarships. They don't know about the wheelchairs that were donated. They don't know about the washers and dryers that were donated to the homeless shelter. They don't know about the weekend of Rotarians reading to the kids in school. They don't know about any of those things. Well, why do they not know about it? Whose responsibility is it that the club members stay aware of what's going on? It's the presidents, it's the board, it's every one of you who's excited about Rotary. You need to be sure that your members are aware of what's going on. There's only one way to do that. You have to tell them. They're not gonna know if you don't tell them. All right. Club socials, board meetings, and volunteer activities. Those are some of the things they need to be aware of. If they're not aware of it, how are they going to be involved with it? I don't understand why you would even think that they would know and be involved if you don't let them know about it. One of the biggest ways to do it, you're going to need to have club assemblies. Everybody's favorite meeting, club assemblies. Ooh, but they're important. Now, can they be boring? Yes. Can they be too long? And I know in some clubs, when they know it's going to be club assembly, they don't come to the meeting because they say it's not what we want to be there for. But if you had talked to them and you had engaged them and excited them about what you were going to talk about, there's a good chance they would be there. Okay. Meaningful club assemblies. Those of you who are presidents, we try to pound into your heads agenda, and that's a very important meeting to have a good agenda for. You're going to need to entertain them. You're going to need to have some things that excite them. Do something special on that day. Excuse me. I would always recommend that you recognize some either committee members or board members or just members in the group Uh, you recognize them for something they've done. If you have birthdays or anniversaries or something like that on those days, on club assembly days, it's great to have something special. Make it so that people want to come to club assemblies. They don't have to be boring. They don't have to be too long and that sort of thing. And one thing you definitely need before that meeting is over, you need feedback from everybody that was in there. You need a discussion. You need to discuss, not just tell them, not just report, but interact with the members. Discuss what you talked about, what you did in the meetings. All right, let's go to number 5. Number 5 on the list was select. Every year, the incoming governor, incoming president, always says membership and attraction. Adding membership is of absolute importance. In most sessions, in order to get any sort of a president citation, you have to have at least a net increase of 1. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 10. Depends on where you are. Historically, what we have had a bad habit of doing is, as soon as we find that out, we walk out into the street, grab the next poor soul walking down, and say, "Come on in, you're going to be a Rotarian." And we end up with people who don't stay for any one of several reasons. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't, that the next person walking by that you grabbed and drug in kicking and screaming into the meeting can't turn out to be an awesome Rotarian. That does happen. But there's also other people that you already know. Every single one of you knows somebody similar to yourself. Somebody that cares about the community, somebody that cares about world health, somebody that cares about the economy, somebody that cares about doing good in the world, giving back to, somebody like that. Those are all qualifications that we need, for Rotarians. We talk about someone who has the time and the treasure. We want you to donate your time, we want you to donate your treasure, we want you to donate your ideas, but we want you to be there for a reason, and we want you to stay. We don't want you to come in and then find out this isn't for you, and then decide that that you're gonna go off and do something else. We want qualified members. The Rotary Club needs to be a gathering of good community leaders. It needs to be professional people, men and women, who make a mark on society, who make a difference. That's what Rotary's about. There are plenty of those out there that we haven't been able to reach. They weren't the ones who were walking by as we ran out to drag them in. No question about it. The other thing we want to bring in is we want to look for Rotary. We want to look for members that'll be involved. We want them to be involved. We want them to be involved in Rotary. There's no reason why you can't be involved in Rotary and also be involved in your church. You can be involved in Rotary and be involved in the chamber. You can be involved in Rotary and be involved in sports or anything else. And you can use your involvement in Rotary to enhance those other things that you're interested in, that you're a part of. That's what we're looking for. Those are the members. Those are the people that we want to be Rotarians. You have to do it. Community leaders create a dynamic, a fun, active club. And I've visited clubs. I was assistant governor for a while. Visited clubs, and in all but one club of all the ones I visited, I felt I was welcome. One club, they acted like I wasn't even there. They didn't acknowledge the fact that I was the assistant governor. They didn't really even acknowledge the fact that I was a visiting Rotarian. I was very disappointed. It turns out they were a very inactive club. They were a breakfast club. They met, they had breakfast, they said hi, and they left, and they never did anything. That club no longer exists now. It failed. Why did it fail? They were not a dynamic, fun, exciting, active club that did things. They didn't have Rotary in their Rotary Club. So what I want you to do, I title this Building a Fire Under Your Rotary. I probably shouldn't have after the news I've been watching, but building a fire under Rotary means stir it up. Find out what's wrong. Don't let it go down the path of having to shut down your Rotary Club because you weren't dynamic and you weren't fun and you weren't active. Okay. Number 6, engage. Engage your members. Engagement. I know you've heard this. If you're a PE or even if you're a past president, you've heard this. You got to engage your membership. My club engaged me immediately by having me start that fundraiser. I've seen a lot of different ways they try to engage people. We have the thing called the red badge, blue badge in some places, where you have a list of things that you have to do in order to get your regular badge. You start out and have a long list. At another RLI, I heard of a club that had a thing where they went around and found out something that was kind of a secret to every Rotarian, something that they about themselves that the average person wouldn't know. And then every member of the club got a list of, and they were things like, this Rotarian owns his own airplane. This Rotarian won the Pulitzer Prize. This Rotarian had open heart surgery. This Rotarian was a national motorcycle racing champion. All of those, the list of what people would know. And they had to go around and interview each other to find out who they were and get their signature on that list. And of course, the person that got the most signatures, the fastest, won something. I don't know what it was. But what a wonderful, exciting way to get the members to know each other. If they're going to have that fellowship, they need to know as much as they can about each other. And it's our responsibility to put them in a position where they can learn those things, where they can learn to be friends with each other, where they can learn what they have in common with each other. That's the biggest part of it. Members, we typically a club will have a new member greet the income, all the rest of the people when they come out to me, have them greet them at the door. That's not necessarily something you should reserve for just a new member. Maybe it would be a good idea to have one of the older members and a new member greet people at the door, and have the older member tell the new member something about the person that's coming in, so that you're increasing that fellowship on that level. That's a great way to get to make that work. Happy dollars. Raise your hand if you do happy dollars. I can't tell. I'm assuming that there's a hand or two out there. What are happy dollars? Is you get a chance to brag. Buck for a brag, they call it in some clubs. That's kind of interesting. And again, it helps members of the club learn about the families. We see a lot of brag for the buck. My granddaughter just won the spelling bee. My son is just got picked to be on the high school football team or things like that. Others are. I went with the group to Nicaragua, and we put in 2 wells in communities that didn't have wells. Now all of a sudden, that's an interesting story. We got somebody. There's a good place to pick up a program with stuff like that. So that works. That works very, very well. Working on service projects together, getting members to, like when we did the handicap ramp thing, we had more people come out to do that because they were physically doing something with their hands that was helping somebody else. And there was a visual. You got to see the person that your labor helped, and that was good. Plus, we got a lot of good publicity. We put pictures in the paper. We partnered with several other disability groups that could give us the names and an address that we're at. So it was a community building effort too at the same time. Very, very engaging. One of the things we forget to do sometimes is to reach out to all the members. Again, it's pretty easy to reach out to the younger if it's something that the whole group is doing, if it's something physical. But every single person needs to be. You need to reach out to every one of them every time. Every new members, especially, you need to ask them to serve on committees. I visited one club where they had a big board on the wall, and it had every activity that their club did listed in a thing. It was like a calendar. And then it had the names of every Rotarian in the club down the side. And you went across and you put a star or whatever in the block of the thing that you were gonna help with. So you could walk in there and you could look immediately, see who was involved and who wasn't doing anything. Well, it didn't take long before the people who were involved started pressuring the ones that weren't doing things, and that club grew, and that worked out very well. Something that's easy to do, takes almost no effort to make it happen, but it works well. Uh, they need to work. Members need to work on work sessions, service projects, and fundraisers. Uh, there's a lot of clubs where the board members are asked for a dollar donation, or physical material donation, and the membership is there too. They need to be involved. Having some of your own treasure involved in anything, fundraiser, service project, or whatever, is going to make you more involved than if you just all you're doing is you're sitting back. Now, I get asked the question a lot. We've got several members in our club who don't get involved, but they sit back and just write a check. What should we say to them? And my answer is, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That may be all they're able to do, but give them the opportunity to do more than that. Don't hesitate to appreciate what they do and to thank them for it and recognize them for it. They can be, for instance, they can be assistant chairman of a committee with no duties except to just go there and sit and see what happens, and maybe even just write a check, at that time. But get them involved, get them engaged. That's the whole reason, the whole purpose for doing that. The result of all that: better service, better friendship, better fellowship equals better club, exciting club, dynamic club, active club. That's what we want to be. All right, let's go on to number 7. Number 7, after everything else we've talked about, number 7 is deliver. If we talk about all these things that we can do to make it happen and then we don't do it, what have we done? What have we gained? Nothing. Make that weekly meeting a respite from the stress of business. Make it a place where business people want to go to get away from the stress of everyday life. Make it fun. Give them something to do. Give them some excitement. We already talked about how food can ruin the meeting for you. Food can also be a benefit. Make it exciting. Make it something. You go to a restaurant. You're not going to keep going back to a restaurant that doesn't serve you what you want, or doesn't do it, or doesn't give you good service. You're going to go to the ones where they have what you want. And that's not just food, that's everything. You're not going to keep going to a Rotary Club. You're not going to be a member and be there every week. I mean, there are clubs who have people with 50, 60 years of perfect attendance. And that had to be something special to that person, or they wouldn't have done that. Getting away from the stress, of business, of professional, and having fun for an hour once a week. I look forward to going to the Rotary Club because in most cases it's fun. I've been to some that weren't, and it didn't make me want to go back. But if I go to one and I have a good meal and I'm enjoying, then they've got a good program, they have a good speaker, and the people are active, and I get to hear about all the good things they've done. And some visitors are there, and they're talking about how excited they were to be there. That fulfills me. That makes me very happy. And you know what? I like being happy. And that's why I like being a Rotarian. A source of new ideas and good programs. Make your club something that people want to come visit. Make your meetings so exciting, so much fun, that they want to come there because of your ideas, because of your new thing. Don't just sit back and say that's the way we always did it. We don't ever want to do that if we can help that. All right. Rotary should be a time of renewal, the meetings. We have, most clubs, not all, but most clubs have you recite the 4-way test each time. Why? Why would we do that? The 4-way test is a very interesting part of our existence. of the Rotary Club. I was speaker at a training seminar last year, and those of you who have been in a class with me know that I'm an extremely loud person. I don't do well with microphones because they're always screaming and buzzing and stuff like that. So I seldom will use a microphone. When I started the session, when I started the speech, they asked me to use the microphone, and I said, no, I don't want to do that. At the end of the meeting, at the end of my speech, one of the Rotarians came up to me and said, Bob Arnold, I have just lost all respect for you as a Rotarian. Well, you can imagine how that hit me. That was a slap in my face. And I said, wait a minute, tell me what it is. What happened? He said, we asked you to use the microphone and you didn't do it. And we couldn't hear you. So we missed out on, judging from the reaction of the rest of the people here, we missed out on a topic that we would have liked to have heard. But you didn't do that. And you know what? That made me rethink the four-way test. I try to live my life by the four-way test, mostly thinking about ethics. Is it the truth? Is it fair and all that sort of thing. But I really didn't apply it to everything. And I should have applied it to that. It was not fair to those Rotarians that they didn't get to hear it because of my own personal, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do the microphone. And he was genuine. He really was honest with me. And I thanked him for it because I've changed the way I do things now. I consider other people's viewpoints and other people's why they're requesting it, and instead of just, in my case, thinking, well, I don't need the microphone because I yell so much, but that wasn't true. So I use the four-way test now in everything I do, not just ethics and that sort of thing. I want to leave a Rotary meeting feeling good. I want to leave there happier than I walked in, and I usually do. It's a renewal for me. It's a good feeling to be a Rotarian. It's a good feeling. We need time to socialize. I love going to district conferences and things like that because I get to socialize with people. I love RLI, especially being a discussion leader, because I get to visit other districts and meet people that I would never met because they weren't in my district or in my club, and we've become good friends over the years. And I went from having a social circle of maybe 20 or 30 people. I probably now, because of Rotary, I have a social circle of hundreds of people that are good friends, close friends, that we care about each other, and we checked on each other all during the virus and the quarantine. That's an awful good feeling to know that you can walk into any Rotary Club anywhere in the world and be welcomed and considered an equal and a fellow with those people. That's an exciting part of being a Rotarian, and that's a good sell. Remember what I said earlier about selling Rotary? You got to put more Rotary in your Rotary Club. A lot of clubs meet, do 5 minutes of business, have a speaker, and that's it. And then they walk out and don't think about it again. That's not Rotary. That's not keeping Rotary in Rotary, and that's not selling Rotary. Okay. Probably one of the last things I'm going to go into, I plan the way I do my talks based on interacting with the audience. It's difficult for me when I don't have that, like right now, because I was expecting to be able to, to at least be able to see you and see how you react. And, I want to be able to see you if you're putting your fingers in your ears because I'm too loud. I want to see you laughing if I tell you something that should be humorous. I want to see you having a good time. A lot of clubs use a sergeant at arms to kind of keep levity in the meeting. Some of them are very good at telling jokes and putting humor into it. But there's lots of things that you can do to add fun and humor and that sort of thing to a meeting. That meeting, that weekly meeting, or whenever it is you meet, is the one chance you have as Rotarians to show visitors, visiting Rotarians, speakers, and anybody else, what you're capable of. And if you look around, if you go online and you look at the things that just Google any district, Google any Rotary Club, and read what they do. Read their itinerary, read their calendar, and see what they're up to. You will be amazed. $100 million a year spent on doing good in the world, that's a drop in the bucket. That's just Rotary International Foundation. When you add the things that every single club does throughout the world, it's billions of dollars and billions of people that are affected and impacted by the good that we do. Now, believe it or not, I'm running out of hot air. I did want to answer questions. I don't know how that's going to work since I don't have a host, and every single one of you are muted. If you have a question and you have the ability to unmute yourself, I guess we could try that. I was supposed to have a host that could handle that for me. So if you have a question, Drew, are you here?
Back, Bob. I'm back.
Okay. Is there any way we can have them ask questions now?
Yeah, but we have another meeting starting in 5 minutes, and Zoom is really.
All right. How about one good question?
Yeah. So everybody has the Q&A button or the chat for a really good question for Bob. And by the way, this has been recorded, and please feel free to reach out to Bob. He's a tremendous resource. I've known Bob for a long time in Rotary, so don't let this 1 hour with these glitches and this and that stop you from the connection, please. But to Bob's point, anybody raise your hand or put a Q&A for Bob before we end it. I'm searching right now, Bob, by the way. I'm looking for Q&A. We have one Q&A.
Okay.
That's not really a question. Bob, love your tie. So there you go.
Yes. 2005, 100-year anniversary of Rotary tie. Bought it in Chicago at the International Conference.
Excellent. And it probably cost you more than $10, I would think.
Yes, it did.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. I'd give anything to be able to see your face right now.
And Bob,
every one of you, send me a picture of your face.
Bob, I'll tell you what, if you don't mind, I'd like to invite you back when we do a Rotary University so we can slam dunk it, because Bob in person is the best, and this is second to that, but we'll make it better for you next time, Bob. I commit to that. We will do that, okay?
Okay.
So, awesome. Thank you. You guys do not stay on the same screen. I'm going to end the meeting. You log in or go to their website, as I mentioned before, jump on the session. It says join me. Any issues, just send us a message. We'll do our best to jump on as fast as we can, and we'll go from there. And again, Bob, cannot thank you enough, and everybody for attending. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay.